So after the Hakdama of the whole beginning of the Hemshech, then the Rebbe goes into the Oitza Ha'elyon. The Rebbe says that in order to be Mavai the Oitza Shalomayla, the Frierdiker Rebbe brings the Maamar Tikun Zoya Eren Sof Lamayla and the Kates Lamata Adin Tachlis. And he finishes off at the end of the Hemshech saying that the Maila Adin Kates, that is the Oitza. Okay. So we have to understand what's Eren Sof Lamayla and the Kates Lamata Adin Tachlis. What's the order of the Maamar Azal, the way it's always brought in Chassidus? Lamayla Adin Kates Lamata Adin Tachlis. Which order does the Frierdiker Rebbe say the Biur? First he goes Ba'arichas Lamata Mata. So you can see there's a question that the Rebbe is answering. The Rebbe doesn't say in a form of Kashan Ateretz, but he says K'dei Levaya V'Harchava V'Amkus the Geidel or Inyan of the Maila Adin Kates. He's first Mavaya, the Frierdiker Rebbe is first Mavaya, the Inyan of the Mata Mata Adin Tachlis, how it goes all the way down Adin Tachlis, and wherever it is, it's Ein Sof. And from that we understand the Maila of Ein Sof, the next level of Ein Sof, the Maila Adin Kates. And he says now, the Rebbe starts going into Perek Design, and now in Tesvov, that now the Frierdiker Rebbe is going to be masbeh the Inyan of the Maila Adin Kates, which is even higher than the Lamata Adin Tachlis. Okay, so we see that the order has been changed b'dafka. He wants Lamata Adin Tachlis first, and based on that we're going to understand the Maila Adin Kates. And a few times later on the Maamar you hear the Rebbe saying the Lashon that the Maila Adin Kates is bedugmas Lamata Adin Tachlis. So you see that he's comparing the two. So if you're comparing the two, why do you have to change the order? You could say this is like that, that's like that. I mean, why do you have to change the order around? You're anyway comparing them. So in other words, that you're comparing them, and yet Lamayla Adin Kates is higher than Lamata Adin Tachlis. That's why we have to put. So let's translate the words of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maamar. Frierdiker Rebbe's Maamar says the opening words of Perek Design, V'hine kishem she'er sofu Lamata Mata, and is mispashed all the way down, Adin Shiur. K'moi kein Ein Sof is Lamayla Maila. What does it mean kishem kach? What's the rule of kishem kach? Well, usually we say kishem means you're equal. They're equal. Just like the Eibush is Lamata Mata, he's also Lamayla Maila. But we're saying there's two things going on at the same time. The Frierdiker Rebbe is comparing kishem kach, but at the same time he's also changing the order in order to bring out the Maila of Lamayla Maila Adin Kates. So there's two things going on. There's a comparison, and yet at the same time bringing out the Maila of the Maila Adin Kates. Right? Yeah. And that's where the Rebbe says the question. I'm going to read from this Hanach. It's not the same as your Hanach. You want to give it? You have another Hanach like this? Because I don't know if it's going to be the same Nusach.
I have two.
Yeah. Oh,
This one?
well, that's the one I have.
Oh.
I don't know which one yours. Let's see what they write. Everybody has one Nusach. So it begins. In this Hanach, it's paid base. So the Rebbe asked the question for Ha'inyan Bazeh, the middle of Perek Beis. B'Shleime b'Negel Ha'inyan Da'in Sof Lamata Adin Tachlis Harikivin Shoyin Sof Be'etzem Hu K'moishu Lifnei Tzimtzum is moving Geidel Ha'inyan Sheba'hamshachos Lamata Mata Adin Ad She'ein Lamata Imen Shezehu Ba'ofen Da'in Tachlis Lamata K'moishu Lifnei Tzimtzum. So you understand the Maila of Lamata Mata because he's saying that even though the Ein Sof is Lifnei Tzimtzum, but he reaches all the way down here. Avol mahu ha'inyan da Ein Sof Lamayla Adin Kates. Hari belavu hachi nimtza Ein Sof Lifnei Tzimtzum. Mahu ha'inyan da Lamayla Adin Kates. See, they're missing a piece.
Which piece?
They never added on in the question about Oifen Shabachom Akshur. I think there was some stuff should help me. Oifen should do the hearing. Kates should have a Mahu Indian Shaynas of the Myron Kates. That's not the deed how the Rebbe said it. Okay, the Rebbe is asking again, are we comparing them? First of all, are we comparing them as Ein Sof L'mayla indicates it's higher? And then this question is, Meila Bishleim with Ein Sof L'mata Mata Adin Tachlis makes sense. That even though he's Ein Sof, L'mayla Min Atzimtzum, but he comes all the way down.
When does it speak about L'mayla being higher?
In the previous part, where he says that the reason why he put L'mata Adin Tachlis first was a Hagdama to see the Maila of L'mayla Maila Adin Kates. The Shinui Seder was to put this one first. Hepech HaSeder of the Maamar Azal was in order to bring out B'harchov of Amkus the Lashon is. Look at the previous Sif. Yeah, look at the. If you've got this Hanach on page Yud Aleph, about 4 lines down from the Lahovin Inyan Hoitzer. Kadei Lahovin B'harchov of Amkus Godel. Or Ian, the L'mayla in Kades, Mzvai B'sifim HaKoidmin L'mata Mata. So that's a Hagdama to be. Okay, so the question that the Rebbe is asking here in the beginning, on the beginning of Perek Tezvav is, what is the uftu of L'mayla Mayla ad Ein Kades? B'Shleima, you say L'mata Mata makes sense. You're saying that Hagam is Ein Sof, and he's L'mayla Min Atzimtzum, but nevertheless he comes all the way down. That makes sense. The Chidush is he comes all the way down. What's the Chidush? That it'll come down. He spoke about it in the previous prokim that Ein Sof comes all the way down, even to Nivroim Achit Tachtonim, even to Paray, even to Beitzei Kinim, and things like that. He goes all the way down. That's the Ein Sof. He goes all the way down. But if you're saying Ein Sof is L'mayla Mayla, in case what's the Mayla of that? What's the Uftu? What's the Chidush? He is anyway Lifnei Atzimtzum. Where else should he be? Obviously he's Ein Sof. So again, what is the question? So a little bit Imigesa. If we're comparing, what's the side of the question? Maybe there's no Chiddush in Eretz of the Modern case. What's the problem with that?
Then why do you have to switch the order and bring out the Chiddush?
If you're comparing, then go Al Pi HaSeder. Ein Sof is L'mayla in Kates, Lifnei Atzimtzum, and he's also L'mata in Tachlis because he goes all the way down.
Where does it go up?
He is L'mayla in Kates. The way we're learning in the question, we're learning he's L'mayla in Kates. He's higher than the Tzimtzum. He's higher than everything. That's how we're learning in the question. So he said, if there's no uftu, there's no chiddush. So if there's no chiddush, so why did you switch the order around? In order to understand the great mile of L'mayla in Kates, you have to put in the mata first. Well, why do you have to do that? What's the big chiddush? It's all based on the thing that we're comparing the two together. If you're comparing them, then what's the chiddush? Finishes, so he continues, V'alzeh mevai b'hamayim shu l'mayla adin kates bebechinas helam ha'oyer shu behelam malach ha'elam ve'ilui achi ilui u'bichlolus hu inyan atzimtzum. So what is Taka the Beal? And he goes straight into the Teves HaMashem. What is Taka the Beal? What is Taka the Beal? The answer to the question. What is the Chiddush of L'mayla adin kates? So you're going to have to say that here is going with the what it says. What does it say in other places about the L'mayla in Kates and Lamata in Tachlis? Lamata in Kates means he's nimshach Lamata, even though he's Ein Sof. He's nimshach all the way down. And what's L'mayla? That he's Oila L'mayla. It's a tnu of Aliyah. Right? The Ein Sof is Taka Ein Sof, but he's also Oila to be Nichlal Ba'atzmusay. Or the Tzimtzum, for example. Chlolosu Inyan Tzimtzum. Why is it the Tzimtzum? The Tzimtzum is the Aliyah of the oil from the Mokem HaCholol and to go into a form of Helam. So Aliyah means Aliyah v'Helam. V'Helam acha-Helam, u'v'ilu acha-Ilu. And v'cholos, that's the Inyan of Tzimtzum. Right? So what's the Nakuda? The Helam means, that Maila means Helam v'ilu. Going upwards and becoming the Helam. V'ha'inyan bazeh, and now he goes into Teves HaShem Tov. What does it say in Teves HaShem Tov? Let's read the Teves HaShem Tov. Bereishis ba'alakim es, bereishis v'targim Yerushalmi b'chochma. Shuhu ois aleph. K'moshe kosuv, aleph k'chochma v'nis'atev boi, u'bore oir min ois aleph, u'hu oir atzilus, v'achar kach nis'atev im ois aleph b'ois beis, u'bore oir mabri, v'achar kach chozer v'nis'atev im ois beis, v'soich ois gimel, u'bore oir mislamata b'oilem habriya, ad shenis'atev b'ois tov, u'bore oir mistachtenim, v'zer shukosuv bereishis ba'alakim es, Shuchof beis oisius min alaf ha'tofa b'seichei ruchni Ruchniusi Yisbarach Shenikra Shamayim. Shenis'atif v'nislabish HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'seicha pes oisis elu u'bares ha'aretz. Shehu kol inyon echem ha'aretz, shehu al yedei daled me'es levushim min alaf ha'tov, shu eretz tachlis she'ein lamata mimenu. V'achar kach chaz HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'nisnata v'kama kisum v'kama klipin, di'inin toy v'choy v'cheshach v'tahayim. V'zeh shechom ha'sol, okay. V'chol zeh nasa l'yedei shem elekim she'nigvuru v'tzimtzum. Umizeh move. Now the Rebbe is saying. What do we see? What is the Teves of Hashem Tov in a nutshell? What's that?
It goes through a lot of levushim.
It goes through levushim. It's mislabish in one ois, and then that ois with that ois is mislabish in the next ois, and that ois with that ois. Those two oises are then mislabish. So it's a case of levushim al gabi levushim until you get down and you can create even cheshach and toyu. Okay. Umizeh movement. This is what the Rebbe is extracting from Teves of Hashem Tov. ומזה מובן שישנה אור אינסוף כפי שהוא בגילוי לפני הצמצום. כפי שמובן בהן במים אור אינסוף פשוט ממעלה כל המציאות, ואחר כך נסצמצם ונסלבש על בכמה לבושים, ובלושן המים בהרם האחרם באילו החילוי, ובכינס הד האור והד הגילוי, והיינו שהאילו והאילו הם בשני פנים. What's going on over here? What did you take out from the Teves of Hashem Tov? What is the Rebbe added from Teves of Hashem Tov? We know that there's an Indian that ever wants to mention all the Rabbeim, but it's not a put in the Kiddush. They just add on things because we're talking about Elam HaChaelim, so we found a Maamar. Obviously he's being moisive something. What's he being moisive from the Teves of Hashem Tov? And this is the first thing, and it's actually the yesod of the whole Maamar. The Teves of Hashem Tov. Just finish up how he's written it here. Heda ha'over, heda ha'giva, heda ha'over, ha'nish ha'silik oyer ha'tzad, heda ha'giva, sha'afilu b'mokum sh'vay nimtza oyer ha'rubayvim sha'oyer ha'begilu. Pizim avai b'hamayim ha'inin dilamayla in Kates. Kashem shenisbai, you see the hashva. Kashem shenisbai lifnei zeh be'inin lamata adin tachlis. Based on what we understand now from Teves of Hashem Tov, you understand the hashva that lamayla adin Kates is kashem lamata adin tachlis. So what did the Baal Shem Tov add on? So the thing is like this. From here, it's clear that in lamayla adin Kates, we're going according to what it says in many other places, that Lamayla is Pirushay Aliyah, the Aliyah of the oil. Lamata means the Hamshach of the oil, and Lamayla means the Aliyah of the oil. Where's it going to? Well, the Chladus is a Tzimtzum. Silika oil goes upwards. Nichlol Ba'atzmusay. Says the Rebbe, look, it's not just Aliyah, Lamayla, and Atzmus. The Baal Shem Tov is teaching us that this Tnuah of Aliyah and Helam in oil doesn't have to be up there. It can be down here as well. If we're going to compare the Maila and the Mata Mata, if you're going to compare them, you can't compare them if they're in two different places. He goes up there, he goes down there, and now we see the Maila of one over the other. How do you see the Maila? He said that the whole reason why we're comparing them is in order to bring out the Chidush of Lamayla Maila. That's why he changed the order. He put this first and then came to that. First Lamata Mata and then Lamayla Maila. Why did you change the order to bring out the... You haven't been massive to me anything. All you've done is you've told me he goes up and he goes down. So which one is higher? He says in order to be mazber v'harchovu v'amkus, the goydel ha'ilui of Lamayla Adin Kates. How do you see v'harchovu v'amkus, the goydel ha'inyan of Lamayla Adin Kates? You just told me one thing, that oil itself can go down or can go up. Right? What's the better? Which one is better than the other one? So he says, no, in order to compare the two properly, we're going to have to bring them in the same place. Where's the same place? Yeah. Down here. If you bring them both down here, then you'll be able to see the difference between the Maila and the Mata. What would be the Maila down here? Yeah. That when the oil comes down, the Mata, at the same time, he's Behelim. Like we see in Teves of Hashem Tov. The oil is coming down to be Mahava. Bereshis Bara. He's talking about his havas. He's going to be Mahava, Machai, all the Nivroim. Down here, all the way to Mata. At the same time that he's coming down here, Mata, he's also in an oifen of Lamayla Maila. He's not Nisgala to the Nivroim. What Nivroim are going to end up being created? Toiv v'choshech. Toiv v'choshech. Like he says in Teves of Hashem Tov. So we're talking about the way the oil is coming down, Behis Almus. In other words, it comes down, but in a tnuah of aliyah. When somebody's tnuah of aliyah, so wherever he goes, he's in an oifen of hell. Maybe I'll give an example a Moshel Gashmi that make it a bit more easy to understand. Let's use for an example, there's mices of shlichusim that were done that had to be done in a certain way. For example, Elisha Novi sends Gehazi with a stick to be Machai Mesim, the child of this Shnamis, right? So, what was the orders that the Shai told, that Elisha told his servant? Told Gehazi, don't speak to anyone.
Don't stop in the way.
Just keep on going. Don't talk to anyone. In other words, you have to go all the way down there, and you have to be Machai Mesim, this child, and you're going to do it b'kayach of Elisha. But I'm warning you, in order for it to work, you have to be Lamaila Maila Adin Kates. You're going Lamata Mata, but you have to be in a tnuah of Lamaila Maila. Now, don't tell anybody what you're doing. Don't talk to anybody b'chal. Be in an open of Meruma, of his almas, of Lamaila Maila. Are you going down, and you're going out into the world, and you're going to be amongst other people, and they're going to ask you what's herzach? Don't answer them. Don't talk to them. And when you go there, use the stick. Don't show anybody any tricks. I mean, the story goes that he did. And he suffered from it for a few hundred years, or 1,000 years maybe. He suffered from it. He used out the stick. Well, from Elisha until Darizo. Darizo was massacring him, yeah.
How many years is that?
Well, you work it out.
I mean, more than 1,000. This was 500 years ago.
Right, so what was the vault over here? He's going down, but in an ofen of Lamaila Maila. So the same thing, the oil itself is coming all the way down here. And while he's down here, he's also Lamaila Maila in a tnu of Aliyah, vis almas, not talking to anyone. In other words, he's not bisgalus. That's what the Baal Shem Tov is saying. He's coming down, but he's misatif. He's enclothing himself. That means he's hiding himself within an ois aleph, and then from the aleph into an ois base, and then all the way down until you have S from aleph till tov, and then he's creating Yeshmiai. So he's coming down in an ofen of Aliyah. So that is the yesod of the Maamar. This is the yesod of the Maamar. What's the pirush of Lamaila Maila? It means taka heda ha'oil ve'heda ha'gilui, to be misalim, and to be oila lamaila. But oila lamaila is not dafke lamaila min atzimtzum. He's oila lamaila even when he comes down here. He comes down and he's oila lamaila in an ofen of aliyah, in an ofen of ilui and hechakite. Right? Now, the Maamar says two things: Heda ha'oil and Heda ha'gil. He says that one is going about, one is Heda ha'oil, that means that would be Simtzum Arishon, Siluk, and one is Heda ha'gilu, that even where he comes down, he's also an ofen of hell. So here's where the Maggid comes in. Let's just read quickly what the Maggid says, the opening words at least. The Maggid says like this: HaKadosh Baruch Hu osa kama tzimtzumim derech kama oilemes kedei shiyeh achdes im ha'adam shlo yochel lispeles b'hirasei. And he says further, the person has to do an avodah of climbing up to be dovuk in the Eibishter. So what is the Maggid adding on to the Baal Shem Tov? I mean, the Baal Shem Tov also said the same thing, that the Eibishter comes down in an ofen of his almus inside the Oasis to create the world. He is saying that there's a matara to all of this. The matara is that after all these simtsumim, the person should be misachid with the Eibishter, should be achdusay in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Eibishter wants to be ba'achdus with the Adam, and the person should be misachdus with him. So there's an avodah. He has to be sheva his gashmius, as he says at the end, and should be mischaber and become a tzura shleima. So it sounds like the same thing as the Baal Shem Tov. What is he adding on? What is the Maggid adding on? Right? We have already told you what's the Maggid adding on? Well, let's think for a second. What does it mean? Shlo yochel lisbar es behirasei. You can't be sevel the behirus. What does that mean? Which behirus can't? Why did he need to make a tzimtzum? Because the Adam cannot be sevel the behirus of the oir of the Eibishter. Which oir are we referring to? First of all, which tzimtzum are we referring to? Tzimtzum Arishon. Is the Baal Shem Tov talking about tzimtzum Arishon?
No.
The Baal Shem Tov is talking about about an oil which is misatif in ois aleph. The oil which is coming down to be mahava machaya. That would be allowed to say that would be mamala kolama. That would be an oil that's coming down in an oifen of his almus in the oisius. We're not discussing yet about the tzimtzum rishon. We don't know about that yet. The Maggid, it could be the Baal Shem Tov also means that, but he doesn't say it. The Maggid says lo yochel isbaros b'iroseh. What's that? Yeah, he's talking about all the tzimtzumim, but the chayla which tzimtzum is he referring to? The tzimtzum rishon is the first of all, because that's the ribu behirus. The Reiv Behirus is in the Oren Sof before the Tzimtzum. So the first of all he has to go through the Tzimtzum Rishon and then through many more Tzimtzumim until he can get Achdus in Adam. So what is the Maggid referring differently to the adding on to what we have already from the Baal Shem Tov? The Baal Shem Tov is talking about the Helam of oil, let's call it Oil HaMamala, the oil that's coming down. That would be Heder HaGilui, the oil which is coming down, as the Rebbe says. Even the oil, when it comes down, wherever it goes, is also not open of hell. But then the Maggid is saying, but also this head, the head of oil is also in order to come down. This is what we just said before, that the oil and sof l'mayla doesn't mean up there. It means in order to come down here and be in an oifen of ilui, like the mashal of Geichazi, even when he goes down, he should be in an oifen of ilui. Is al derech zeh, the oil and sof shalifnatim, which is bligvul, which is the roiv behirus of the oil, is also kavanasai bishvil lamata, because what's the tachas hakavan of this oil? That the odom alidei avodah should climb up until he becomes aftus and Hakadosh Baruch. In other words, he should get the oil and safa bligvul. And if you look in the Hemshech Vayin Beis, which is a chelik godel beyosa of the Hemshech Vayin Beis, is a beer on this Teres HaMagid. It starts off in the middle of chelik Beis of Vayin Beis and ends in the middle of, or the end, towards the very end of Chelik Gimel.
Oh, wow.
It's Hagois. It's based, there's a Maamar from the Tzemach Tzedek, which is Hagois on this Maamar of the Maggid. This must have been told over to whoever was Mitchaber, the Sefer of Torah, must have been told over by the Alter Rebbe, because the Rabbeim and Medaik, in every single word of this tiny Torah, of the 10 lines, whatever it is they go, mamish, every word, mamish every word. So the Tzemach Tzedek was already Medaik in Yahel Oil, on Tilim, it's the Pasuk, right? What's the Pasuk? Which Pasuk is it? The Metzayin, no? Where is it? Very Torah, Yahel Oil, it's on the Chapachatzes, because Shef Mestama, that's the Pasuk. So the Tzemach Tzedek wrote Hagois on the Maamar of the Maggid. The Rebbe Rashab took the Hagois of the Tzemach Tzedek and had sie ausgestretched, beshach a ganze Hemshech, half of Ein Beis, Chelik Beis, and most of thing. Now in between Kamuvim, there's loads and loads of things in between, but every now and then it finishes a Chatzi Igul. It says V'zer Shekos of Amagid, continues the Lashon of the Maggid for another 2 words, and then goes another Hagol for 50 pages. So every word is mamish b'dik over here. But if you see at the end of the Hemshech of Ein Beis, you'll see that he says this inyan that the Adam should be nischabim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Seder is that first Tefillah, Aliyah Mulmata Lamayla, and then he gets to the Oren Sof, which comes through Torah, which makes very much sense of what we're saying now. That after the person is Oile, he gets to the Oren Sof Shalifnat Tzimtzum. So the Maggid is talking about not just Heder Hagili, but also Heder HaOil. So to sum up, the Baal Shem Tov is talking about Heder Hagili, at least. That's what we know from the Baal Shem Tov. Talking about the oil coming down till it reaches down here, and even down here it's the Helam of the Ilui. The oil itself is in the Tnu of Ilui. And the Maggid is referring to not just the oil that comes down, but even the oil Shalifnat Tzimtzum is also Bishvil Lamata, Bishvil HaOdam, that the person should reach it. Now the question will be, so how can the oil and Sof Shalifnat Tzimtzum be in a form of Lamata also? Remember we said the Vot is that they have to compare them in the same place. How can you get the oil and Sof Shalifnat Tzimtzum to be in the same place down here in order to compare it to Lamata Mata? So on that goes away the next part of the Maamar. So in Sif Gimel, got to juggle between all the Hanochas over here. Oh, in Sif Gimel, okay, it's also Sif Gimel over here. The Rebbe brings down from the Frierdiker Rebbe, a ketta from the Hemshech, that brings down what it says in Eitz Chaim, actually the Lashon of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Hine Lifnei HaTzimtzum Hoyer Nosaf Bekilu K'mashkos of Eitz Chaim, Terem Shenetzlo HaNetzolim Hoyer Oyer Elyon Poshut Memale Es Kol HaMetzias. Validei HaTzimtzum Hin Nisalam Oyer Nosaf. So that's a Tzimtzum Rishon. Now we understand. We're coming by Hemshech to the Magid. So we're talking about the Tzimtzum Rishon, which is the Heder HaOyer. Not just Heder HaGili, but even Heder HaOyer, which was the Tziluk of the Tzimtzum Rishon. The Rebbe says, Umizeh Muven Inyan Noisaf. Shahatzimtzum Hu Rak Bebechinas HaOyer Shoyim Amale Es Kol HaMetzias. And then brings down from the Alter Rebbe that the Tzimtzum was only in Oyer and not in the Moyer. In the middle, towards the end, he says that the Shlachein LaHoy Mokum Metzias HaOyers may roiv HaBehiris Behiris HaOyer Koloshen HaMagid. And then there was a Cholol Mokum Ponri, which Cholol means it's complete, Helen, but the Mo'oyer is untouched. And that's why it says in Torah Oyer, the Adonai B'Shem Shemayim Shabbat Michoel. Everybody knows about the Metzias of the Eibishter. What is this Inyan Noisef? What's going on over here? It brings down the Eitz Chaim, it brings down from the Maamar, there was a Tzimtzum Rishon, and he says, Umizeh Inyan, moving Inyan Noisef. What's the Inyan Noisef? The Tzimtzum was only in the oil, don't we know that from other places? What's he extracting? So we know that the Tzimtzum was only in oil and not in moil. Like the Alter Rebbe says, that the moil is who is galus. Everybody knows that the Eibishter exists. Even Tinoikus understand that, know that. Why? Because moil is always there. The Tzimtzum was only in oil, not in moil. So, therefore, what's the Inyan Noisef? Wirst du verstanden? What's the Esafa? So, the Esafa L'chayr is like this, that obviously when it says in Eitz Chaim, Hoya Oil Elyon Pashut Malak HaMetzias is talking about oil, not more. And when the Magid says that the Tzimtzum, that the Eibishter did come at Tzimtzumim, mitzad the Roiv Behiris, obviously we're talking about oil and not more. Right? And what's that Megea Herzu? This is all a Hakdama to explain that what the Frierdiker Rebbe is bringing in the Maamar, that Terem Shenetzu Kol Antzum Hoya Elam Poshet Malak HaMetzias is obviously, since it's not talking about Atzmos, it's talking about oil. But here's the Rebbe's Mechadish, a big Chiddush, which he doesn't usually talk about, and that is, if oil is Me'en HaMoel, the next keter, if oil is Me'en HaMoel, then it's Me'en all the way. So just like on Atzmos, you won't say Atzmos is Mamala Kol HaMetzias, the same thing you shouldn't be able to say on Oyer and Sof, which is Me'en HaAtzmos, you also shouldn't be able to say it's Mamala Kol HaMetzias. What's the problem with saying Mamala Kol HaMetzias? He's not Shaykhis to Metzias, he's Oyer and Sof. If he's Oyer and Sof, he has no Shaykhis to Metzias. You can't say it's Mamala. Just like you can't say on Atzmos, you can't say on Oyer. So what does it mean, Oyer and Sof Shohei Mamala Kol HaMetzias? So we're going to have to say that Oyer and Sof has in it something, a tchuna somewhere, which makes it shayches to Metzias. Oh, so we're going to have to say that in Oyer and Sof is also got in it the inyan of Gvul. In other words, like this, what's the vort over here? Usually when we say Oyer Me'en HaMoyer, which part of the Moyer is the Oyer Me'en? What does the Moyer have? What two things do we know about the Moyer? Well, we know many things about the Moyer. Yeah, but what do we know about the, let's translate the Lashon of the Maamar, the Yicholos of the Moyer? The Yicholos of the Moyer, Oyer is Me'en which part of the Yicholos?
We always assume naturally that it's Mechal Tisha Lahar Likul.
it's the cholis. The oil and sof habligvul shlifnei tzimtzum is me'en which part of the moed?
It's mechulak to the two things.
It's made both, probably saying.
Oil is a gilui of moed. Shloi lahoy is not moed. Shloi lahoy is to restrict oil.
Am I allowed to?
Hold on. Oil mitzad atzmoi bepashtus is me'en mo'oil. Mo'oil is the yecholis lahoy. He's not a me'en the yecholis shloi lahoy. That's a separate Indian lahoy. Who gets to be me'en or is nimshach from yecholis shloi lahoy? Koyach hagvul. The reshimu. Koyach hagvul. Oil is a me'en mo'oil, which is koyach hagilu. Here the Rebbe is saying a chidush, that oil also has in it the Indian of gvul. It's me'en the oil and sof, it's me'en hamoil, but it also has the mila of gvul. In other words, oil and sof habligvul shlifnei tzimtzum is made up also of an oil of gvul. It's not the koyach hagvul that we talk about with Derech. What's the koyach hagvul? The koyach to make kelim, which is the reshimu. That's a koyach as a separate Indian to oil. The oil itself is made up of oil habligvul and also the ability to be made also in gvul. That's why the Frierdiker Rebbe brings down in the Maamar the Avodas HaKodesh. That's the next part of the Maamar. Why does the Frierdiker Rebbe need the Avodas HaKodesh? If we look in the Maamar of the Frierdiker Rebbe, now let's be easy if we turn back to the Frierdiker Rebbe's page, you'll see that he mixes in the Avodas HaKodesh in the middle, and it doesn't seem to be necessary l'cha'ora. If you look on the first page when he's quoting, yeah. So he says on the first page, he says, "Kamishkosa beitz chayim terem shenet sluko anet solam hoya elam poshu v'malakol amatziyas v'hainu shehoya gilu oren sof." Pirish, dema shehoya nigish. What does it mean? It was gilu and sof. Dema shehoya nigish. Who b'pshitas who oren sof. Avol chimis hamatziyas v'hayeshes lo ya nigish klal. Okay. V'hainu shehoya gilu oren sof abligo. V'hainim bezeh. Now let's explain what that means. That there was only owners of abligo. The isa b'avedus hakodesh. Hayin sok shem shesh lo kerech b'bilti b'agvul. K'meikin yesh lo kerech b'gvul. Tim temes yesh lo kerech b'bilti b'agvul and kerech b'gvul. Atim echas shleimusa ve'in sof shleimusa dekula. Pirish. What's his pirish? The shleimus ein sof hu keil b'gvul gvul. V'lifnei atzimtzum ha'yigilo ein sof abligo v'kerech ha'gvul she'ein sof ha'yibehel. V'zehu. This is the seam. What's v'zehu? It's a seam inyan. Zehu is the oisfir. Zehu, what we said before, the Lashon HaEtz Chaim, Oimroi of the Eitz Chaim saying, Hoya oil erin pashim shuo ein sof abligavul, memala kol ha-metzias. Shahaya niga shah b'chinas ein sof abligavul. See what's going on over here? He's mixed in the Avodas HaKodesh in the middle, and he finished off saying, V'zehu ma shekosav Eitz Chaim. In other words, if you want to understand the Eitz Chaim properly, you're going to have to learn Avodas HaKodesh. What does it say in Avodas HaKodesh? Kshem shesh lo kerech b'bilti gvul, kerech yesh lo kerech b'gvul. I thought the Avodas HaKodesh was talking about the koyach hagvul, which is the koyach to make kelim. Says the Rebbe, no, it's part of the bi in oil and sof. It's not a bi in koyach hagvul. We're not doing koyach hagvul at the moment. We're doing oil and sof in Eitz Chaim. And oil and sof in Eitz Chaim, it says oil and sof memala kol ha-metzias. He's only talking about oil. He didn't mention anything about koyach hagvul, about the reshim. But Eitz Chaim doesn't talk about the reshim. So why is he mixing in Avodas HaKodesh? The vort is that this is a beer in Eitz Chaim. The Rebbe is learning that Avodas HaKodesh is a beer in Eitz Chaim. That this is what it says in Eitz Chaim, that it was Oren Sof HaBligvul. You shouldn't think that that means that it was Oren Sof only Bligvul. The Oren Sof HaBligvul incorporates also the Inyan Hagvul, not the Koyach Hagvul, but the Inyan Hagvul. Taka the Lashon Avodas HaKodesh is Koyach Hagvul, but the Rebbe is learning Pshat that it's going also on Oren Hagvul. Because Shleimus Ein Sof is that it has bligvul and gvul, so the shleimus of oil and sof is also that it has bligvul and gvul. So therefore there's also an oil hagvul. The lashon of Avodas HaKodesh koyach hagvul, and there's a reason perhaps for that, but there is a reason for that, but here what we're using the Avodas HaKodesh is to prove that oil and sof is also made up of an oil hagvul. Now we can already understand, v'zehu oimroi. Now we understand what the Frierdiker Rebbe is saying. V'zehu oimroi. This is what the Eitz Chaim means when he says Oil and Sof memala kol ha-metzias. What's the pshat? That the Oil and Sof is also memala kol ha-metzias. Yeah, there's a part of Oil and Sof which is shayches to metzias. Which darg is shayches to metzias? The Oil HaGvul. It's lifnei atzimtzum and chanam. It's not nirgash. It's not nirgash the inyan of gvul. But there is a darge in Oyer and Sof Shlifnat Tzimtzum which is shaykhs to Gvul. So what the Rebbe is doing is the Rebbe is explaining why the Rafidike Rebbe had to add in the Avodas HaKodesh. What on earth is that Moshe to the Eitz Chaim? Bring the Eitz Chaim and tell me there was a Tzimtzum and get on with the Inyan of Ramayla Mayla. First of all, he has to explain the Eitz Chaim. Then the Oyer and Sof has in it also both things. It's a big chiddush. We don't always learn like that. We usually learn the Oyer and Sof Shlifnat Tzimtzum is only Bli Gvul. And the Inyan of Gvul came through the Tzimtzum and the Rishimu, and it was Niskana after the Tzimtzum only. Says they never know. From this Loshen, the Malach Kalamatzias is moving that there was already an oil which is Shaykhs to Gvul. How could you have an oil which is Shaykhs to Gvul? That's what the Avodas HaKodesh means when he says that the Shem Shesh Lekech V'Iltikvo is not just going on Atzmos, also oil has in it both things. So a mitzvah or inyan of oil and sof is Sai Oil HaBigvul and Sai Oil HaGvul. And that's what it means in Malach Kalamatzias. What does that help us in the Noisa of the Maamar? Once you realize that Oyer and Sof also has a shayrish to Oyer HaGvul, it has incorporates in Oyer HaGvul, we understand that Oyer and Sof is also a sib, even though Oyer and Sof HaBligvul is in the tzimtzum of the Oyer and Sof HaBligvul was in order to make an Oyer HaGvul to come all the way to Mata. So also the tzimtzum Arishon is in Yonai to come down here. This is the beginning of the beer. There's not enough time to go through the whole thing, but that's the Nakudah.